I'm Shannon.
And I'm Lisa.
And KK's here too. And you're listening to Blacktivities,
a celebration of all things Black.
Black culture, Black history,
Black perspectives, and Black panache.
Celebrating our Blackness doesn't mean exclusion.
Everybody's invited, but you got to come in and have a seat.
So let the Blacktivities begin. Welcome to Blacktivities podcast. I'm Shannon, one of your hosts, kicking it with KK, my co-host. That actually sounds like a podcast title, KK. Lisa is not with us today. I hope she's having fun on her little vacation or whatever. I just got back.
Yeah, I'm hating a little bit.
I just got back from mine, so I can't really say much, but
I'm hating on you too.
Our topic today kind of perplexes me. We are Black women. We love and support Black women. And you would think that it would be great to work for one. But when we started talking and having a conversation about this, we all realized that we had some negative experiences working under Black women. So that's what we're talking about today. But before we start, I want to remind you about this pop-up shop that we got going. The Blacktivities shop will only be open for a couple of months, but we have some logo tees and some other tees relating to things that we've talked about on the show. Some of you might like to start your day off with a subtle reminder that these people can kiss your Black panache. Just like my t-shirt here. We have mugs. So as you are sipping your tea or your coffee in the morning, you can remind people. When we talk about Black panache, we're talking about that little flair that we as Black people add on to everything, like that little seasoning, a little Lawry's, right? So if you love Blacktivities, go check out our Blacktivities on our pop-up show site. It is linked for you in the show notes. Before we get into the conversation, let's talk about some
big facts.
I forgot to do that for Lisa when we recorded before. But let's start with some big stats today about Black women's boss status. So despite Black women being some of the most highly educated individuals, there are several stats that show that we're still not being put where we belong, right? As of 2024, there are a total of 8 Black CEOs, that's including both men and women, in the Fortune 500, which only represents a whopping 1.6% of Fortune 500 CEOs. And that is a near record high. So that says one thing in itself. Second stat, out of approximately 44 women serving as CEOs in the Fortune 500, there are currently only 2 Black female CEOs. That's Rosalind Ross Brewer, who's CEO of Walgreens Boots Alliance, and the Sunda Duckett, who is president and CEO of TIAA. Those are the only 2 Black female CEOs in the Fortune 500 company. The third stat is only 4.4% of Black women work in management, and Black women make up 1.4% of C-suite positions in corporate America. So those are any of the titles that have a C in front of them: CEO, COO, C whatever. And that's all I got, because those big stats say a lot of big facts.
It says a whole lot. It says a whole lot. And as a person, as a Black woman in management, it has been part of I haven't always been, but it's been part of my mission to find a way to open the door behind me. And how I show up is uber important. I mean, when you think about being not put in, because we're not put in, we move and we elevate ourselves into positions of leadership. And when we do that, there are so many obstacles. We have talked many times on this show about the stereotypes and tropes that we have to overcome. And that's something in the workplace. And I know you grew up just like I did with you have to show up better. You have to be smarter. You have to look a certain way. You can't get caught slipping. Even the whole, everybody's super casual in the workplace, but I don't see too many of us showing up in jeans every day because it's just not how we were raised. There's a standard that we had to meet.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the fact that we have so many women who could be in leadership, and then the ones who do, I do give grace for the obstacles that they've had to overcome for sure.
Yeah, that kind of relates to the first question that I had, which is, are the big facts concerning to you? And why do you think that there are not more Black women repping in the C-suites?
So I recently met an amazing sister who is in the C-suite and spent some time with her. And we have decided that we're going to stay connected because I always look for, at whatever level, I'm always looking for mentorship and collaboration and those things. And when I asked her a question about, didn't you apply for this a long time ago? We needed you, where were you? And she was like, it just wasn't time for me to move. But the underscoring of that had to do with her having to wait to move until she knew not only was it the right timing, but that she would be able to go from a C to a C, right? Because those opportunities aren't always there. So she was saying, I can't jump out the boat and then risk falling into the water. I have to be able to jump from yacht to yacht. I can't jump from yacht to sailboat. So I understood what she was saying. And for her, it was timing. And I think there's more at risk for taking those chances. Some of the stuff we talked about in the beginning, the tropes and stereotypes that follow us, and I think we're getting away from, in some ways, from like code switching as much and just being able to go in as your authentic self, as you're able to navigate the workplace with our new thinking about how we interact. But I do believe sometimes it's timing. It's about opportunity. And those were the things that she mentioned. Have you had conversations with somebody where they mentioned why or why not they weren't in the C-suite or able to make a major move?
I haven't. My sister-in-law is working her way up in Target corporate, but they are actually very inclusive. So the things that she describes to me, like they actually have meetings where they talk about diversity things. And so I don't think her experience is like maybe some others in other corporations. But my thought was just the whole double minority thing. Like there's only 44 women CEOs, period. And then you're also a Black woman. So, we tend to be like the lowest of the low, the lowest people on the totem pole, the most overlooked. And what you were mentioning earlier, like we have to be ridiculously overqualified. So maybe it's taking us some time to get those qualifications. And that would be a timing thing, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I agree with that. And let me just say this about Target, because I went to the Juneteenth parade and Target had a whole, like they were tailgating. They had all the things up. And I told everybody, my peers, I was like, look, if we don't have this next time, I'm going over to Target. They have food and beverages. It was 100 degrees. They had food, they had beverages, like they were doing a serious tailgate. They had all the Target swag out there. I mean, it was so nice. I said, I'm going to Target. So now you just confirmed. I'm gonna have to look into Target. I already spent enough money in there. I might have to talk to some folks. But anyway, I digress. I'm happy to hear that Target is that inclusive. More organizations need to be that way. And as we move into these spaces, we really need to be sure that we are moving in a way, because you're there because you deserve to be there. I think even if you are a diversity hire, that still doesn't make you disqualified.
No.
It doesn't disqualify you because you got the education, you got the credentials. All you do is go in there and you show them, yeah, this was a right choice. Watch me work.
Right.
That's what happens in a true, authentic way, I think, for a lot of folks who find that they were you don't leave because you were the diversity hire. You get in there and show them what you got.
You show out.
Yeah, you show up and show out, that part. So, I am all for watching us, but I have had a terrible experience. I've not really had the best experiences reporting to Black women. And I believe it's because of these obstacles that are on the perimeter. And I think sometimes we spend some time, bringing in some stuff from the outside. Don't bring the hood stuff into the workplace. Like, don't do that. This is what I want to say. As much as and I know I'm going to get some pushback for this, but as much as we spend time in getting our education so that we are qualified for that, I believe we also need to invest in self so that we are also getting some therapy and all of these things happening too, whether it's simultaneously or once you get there. Mm-hmm. Because my experience has been, and I was reporting to these folks just hoping that it could be a mentorship / collaborative thing, but getting in there and realizing, oh, so basically, Black woman, if I'm reporting to you, I either have to bow down or you don't want no parts of this other Black person that shows up in their own way, bringing their own values and strengths to the organization, bringing their own strengths and opportunities to the organization. That's problematic. And I have had somebody tell me once about a supervisor, like, I feel like this person is obsessed with you. I feel like you're a threat. And I'm like, how am I a threat if you have all this power? And it's like, you're tiers above me, but I'm a problem because I talk about these things, but you, for whatever reason, feel like there's only room for one of us. And that was the observation. It wasn't my observation. It was somebody else who saw how I was being treated in that environment, who said, this is what's happening. They're responding as if there's only room for one of you. And I didn't have the verbiage at the time. I didn't have the verbiage. I knew what was happening, but we didn't have at the time the words gaslighting and the words microaggressions. See, that is not just exclusive to being discriminated against in the workplace, because it was discriminatory, but it was from my own. Yeah.
I want to talk about that in more detail, but first I want to know, what was your experience like working under Black women?
Well, the experience that I had, because I've not often worked under Black women. I had one experience.
Okay.
And then I take that back. I had two experiences. One was fine. One, she was supportive of me and she was kind and, was very, even to some degree, protective of me. So I just want to clarify. And other people didn't necessarily care for her, but that was because she was a strong Black woman traversing territory that she wasn't supposed to be in. and she represented power in her leadership. And when I came on board and she saw some of the people, with their nonsense, she was like, no, we're not doing that. So I'm grateful for her. My other experience was also with an older Black woman who had worked her way up to a very powerful position, very powerful. But I feel like she brought her own baggage to that role. And, even when in the beginning of my time reporting to her, we had a conversation and we would talk about a number of things. And I remember in one conversation, I'll never forget, she said she was talking about my work and, we began to veer off on some other things. And she said, yeah, and you do have a nice body though. And that had to do with this individual's insecurities about themselves. And so I realized that. And Black women, we are built with the frames of goddesses pretty much. We come with the packaging of goddesses and there's no covering that up. But as time went on, what I began to see was because she had like her family coming up there, her husband coming up there, she was dealing with some illnesses and stuff like that. So her family was more present. And it was like, I think it had to do with her own insecurity in that regard. Like, ma'am, trust me, I'm not interested at all. Seriously. And what I really was hopeful for in taking on that role was that I would gain a mentor. I had to come to the realization that we all know all skin folk ain't kin folk. Mm-hmm. And we all know that really the focal point should be on developing a good work relationship. So that experience, which I won't go into the minutia of because it was crazy, even to the point, I'll give you this example. One time she was like, oh yeah, I have these shoes that I think, will be good for work. And I'm a shoe girl. I'm a clothes girl. I'm a stiletto girl. I'm going to wear a good black heel or a good nice stiletto or something, to pop off the outfit. She gave me these shoes that looked like I was about to go out in the field and just start, it looked like I was going to pick cotton for the rest of my life in them shoes. And I was like, oh, thank you. So, and just sharing with me the aesthetic of what you wanted me to show up at work like. And I was like, that's not me. It's not me. And so, it doesn't really matter. There's no, and there was no intimidation. Like with the other person I mentioned, somebody said, well, she's intimidated by you. And I'm like, intimidated? How can you be intimidated when you have all this power? And I have none. I have no power. But the intimidation came from, the fact that, well, two of us who are dope can't coexist in the same space. It has to be me. There's no coexistence. So if you're not completely bowed down, then we can't exist in this same space. And I ended up being traumatized by that experience, so much so that it took another Black woman to point out when I went to the workforce center. A Black woman said, look, she said, I'm not trying to get all up in your business. She said, but this experience you talked about, you have to reframe it because you sound like somebody who's been through a DV situation and you're traumatized by it and you need to heal from that. And you could start with reframing it. So it was another Black woman that helped me to begin to heal.
That's interesting. I have had 2 experiences working under Black women before. I think the first one was okay. I didn't have any issues, I would say, but I was also very young and I didn't know what I was doing because it was when I first started teaching or whatever. The second one was the one that kind of traumatized me a little bit because I had a lot going on. Like, first of all, I had gotten moved from a school that I liked, but because there weren't enough kids, they had to move a teacher. It ended up being me. And I had an afternoon basically to decide which one of these 3 schools that I was going to go to. And I didn't know anything about the schools. So I just chose one that was closest to where I lived. And I had just had my first child. So I'm like nursing and pumping and, up at crazy hours. I had postpartum depression. And then when I got to this school, she had me doing things that I had never done before, subjects I had never taught before, and I had to teach all 4 of them. Normally, I just teach like reading or language arts, maybe a social studies class, the way they had it set up. But the situation that she put me in, I was teaching all 4 subjects: reading and language arts, science, social studies, and math. You do not want me to teach your child math. And I had one class the entire day. So one group of kids. And it was overwhelming because anybody who's ever known a teacher or been around a teacher, like the more different things you teach, that takes more time. And for some reason, I still don't know why, she just chose me. And it was like she was trying to find a way to humiliate me, to like put more work on me. Like she wanted me to script my lesson plans. The lesson plans were already like 20 pages because I had 4 subjects. So she wanted me to script all of them every week. This is after I had already told her I'm overwhelmed, asked her, could she put me with a team? Because there was some situation where she could have put me with a team. She just chose not to do it. She said, I'll think about it. And then she said, no, I'm leaving you here. And she told me, there's no excuse for piss poor time management because I was struggling to get everything done. And that's on top of the postpartum depression. There was one time I remember she had me like acting out something that she wanted me to do in my classroom. And she actually had me like come in the door and go out. Like,
oh Lord, you gotta be kidding me.
It was just a lot. And then she was the one who did my observations. And, there was some activity one time where she came in, I had the kids like doing some kind of song and they like to get up and like sing the song. It was something related to something that they needed to remember for what we were working on. And she kind of like fudged that eval and said my class was out of control and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, that's not what happened. So this went on the whole entire year. And it got to the point where I didn't want to come to work. I was taking as many days off as I could. And she fired me at the end of the year. But I was already a tenured teacher. And so when you're a tenured teacher, there's a due process you have to go through. She didn't go through that. And so I had to go to the teachers union and use their lawyers to get them to give me my job back. But that was like right before I moved to Georgia because I'm like, I got my job back, but I'm like, I'm not going back to that place. So yeah, it was a nightmare. And years after that, I still had anxiety after a holiday or after, like a Sunday. I have anxiety because I got to go to work. It was like this residual stuff that I still felt. And I still don't know why she chose to single me out, because it was me and like one other person that she was doing this to.
Was the other person Black also?
No, that person was white.
Okay.
But the next question I have, and you've talked about it a little bit, is do you think that those big facts, the stats about the lack of Black females being bosses, plays into how some of them act when we work under them? Like maybe they feel like they have to prove themselves, or could it be that they feel like they're super smart and overqualified and maybe they're just giving off this air of arrogance? Or maybe they want to push you to greatness. I don't know. Like what what do you feel like are some of the reasons that Black women may mistreat other Black women, or it may not be a good experience working for a Black woman? I know one of the things you said was maybe there's competition. Like they feel like there can't be two Black women who are great in this organization. Are there some other things that you maybe think is going on here?
I would say that the power dynamic is key. I think in your situation, there was a power dynamic and really trying to script. When you said scripting me and I had to act out and all of that, like you are really treating me like a child, like I don't operate in excellence. And I understand people wanting to be excellent and show, but if you have not came in and seen me, it goes back to the whole watch me work. Like you want them at your executive level in the C-suite to watch you work. I may not be at that level, but you got to watch me work. We all deserve to have somebody look at us and our respective style. Like I have a different style. I've never been the type of person who wanted to get into all the details and the minutia of a thing. Like I like to deal with things on a higher level. So a high level overview or something like that. And then I'll fill in the blanks later. But it's also how I've shown up and how I've been successful in what I do. So we all have different personalities. We all have different strengths. We all have different things that we bring and different styles of working. And so your work style should have been respected in that moment. Let me get to know Shannon. What is her work style? How do I best supervise somebody with this work style? That's the key. The key is understanding who's reporting to you, what their work style is, so forth and so on. I would say overall, it can be a multitude of things. It can be that two of us can't coexist in this space. It can also be that I'm just a person who wants to control everything and have so much control. And maybe I want all this control because I'm scared of not being looked at in the way that I need to be looked at. So if you're not as detail oriented as me, and that's what my brand is, then I need you to do these things because my brand is at stake. That's a possibility as well. But I have never been, it doesn't seem like in that situation, you're a new teacher. You're having to teach a subject. That's like me teaching. I don't care about math. All I care about is if I can count my money and balance my account. That's what I care about. Can I count my money, balance my account, pay my bills? That's all I need from math. That's it. I don't need all this other figures and all the other, I don't need it. So I would be the worst person. Now, words, English, science, history, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm good with that. But don't stick me with having to teach a math class, and then on top of that, you're going to script me with language that I don't even use. We have our own way of speaking. You teach English. And so for somebody, you have words that you choose that you're comfortable with. Who needs to script an English teacher? Why would you script somebody whose job is words, whose specialty is words? It makes no sense. Sometimes I think people are just assholes, but we can attribute it to that as well. So, just the whole concept of it's a power dynamic, and it could be competition and it could be a protective measure, but it's not necessary. And we need to not put that on other people.
Well, I apologize if I taught you that year, or if you're a parent or of one of those children I taught that year, because I was not at my best. It was a disaster, to say the least. I apologize. I hope somebody filled in that gap for you. Yeah, but it was just a bad experience. Like, she would talk about me to other teachers, and even I had a kid that I was like trying to redirect, and he said, "Oh, I heard Principal so and so say, you don't know what you're doing and yada, yada, yada. You're not a great teacher. And I was like, oh, okay. But plot twist, I heard her house burnt down and she got fired because of something messing with some money or something at the school. So it'll always come back to you if you don't treat people right.
Yes, it does. And plot twist, the person that I reported to is no longer with us.
Mm.
I would say RIP, but I think I'd rather say ding dong, the witch is dead. So,
on that note, let's move on to what is traditionally Lisa's pieces. But again, she's not here today. So KK is filling in with one of her original poems. KK, what you got for us today?
So I told Lisa that I write poetry too. I just never thought I would have a chance on Blacktivities, and I'm super happy about that. So this is about growing up in the hood and our communities, and our schools are part of our communities. Many of the people we're talking about are part of our community. So here we go. I am the surrogate mother of those who were told there is no room at the inn, no room at all for them. The corner store is my refrigerator, a pantry where when they only have $1 or maybe even a dime to spend, where the proprietors are my caregivers when hunger drags them in with nothing at all to give. They are my children. I am the ghetto. The creaking stairs they walk up all alone is my voice welcoming them home. My eyes are the street lights that come on, watching them as they hurry on. The world wants to blame me, but I never called them to welfare and poverty. I gave them Big Mama with all her wisdom to see, who even after a long day of cleaning someone else's house comes home, and when they do wrong, still has the strength to send them outside to pull a switch off the tree. See, they are my children. I am the ghetto. I nurse them, never curse them, and from my bosom that never dries flows the best milk, the breast milk, milk and honey that taught my children how to survive. Whether it's Wonder Bread and Kool-Aid or fat back with red beans and rice all in a pot. I taught them how to get what they want and need and how to keep what they got. See, they are my children. I am the ghetto. And though the entire world wants to take credit for what I have given them, my body contains all the gifts they need to grow prosperous, come back and give back to those in pain and woe. Lawyer, doctor, teacher, entertainer, or athlete, I gave them rhythm and dance from my very own feet. Soul from my belly, arts and creativity from my hands, song and rhyme from my mouth, and genius from my mind.
Yes.
Though the world wants them, they come from my womb, and I provide for my own. They are my children. I am the ghetto.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you.
All right, well, it's time to call the culture. KK, what is your call to action for the culture?
My call to the culture is very simple. I love my people. I love my sisters, and I love that we are making big moves. But I also want to see us simultaneously heal from the things that affect us and prevent us from being supporters and collaborators with one another. We need to develop partnerships and partner in healing, not just girls' trips. I think girls' trips are great, but let's get some healing and support and understanding that we can coexist and we can thrive together in spaces, in all spaces.
My call to action for the culture is for Black women to continue bringing your greatness and your brilliance and keep showing up and showing out. And when you get to those upper level and management positions, make sure you're professional and that you do what you can to uplift the Black women who work for you. Show them what it takes to get to where you are. Advocate for them and help them to achieve their greatness, which actually, could be harder than it sounds because you might scare some people who have more power than you, because I feel like people are scared of Black people having any power. So you probably have to find a way to finesse it. But I'm also calling the culture to click that little plus in Apple Podcasts or that subscribe button in YouTube. We love to read your reviews and your 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts. And get yourself a Blacktivity in the pop-up shop. Until we meet again.
Kings and queens, keep doing big things.
Yes.